Hello, welcome to MJRRPG. The following is an interview with Aka, Lom, and Byoushin, the authors of Japonism, a collection of 3 modern-day Japan scenarios. Originally released in Japanese in 2019 for Call of Cthulhu 6th edition, updated for 7th edition with the addition of a 3rd scenario by Byoushin in 2021, and finally translated into English by yours truly in 2024. I first stumbled across Japonism while looking at Japanese community content scenarios, and the modern-day setting and being a collection caught my eye. I ran each of them through 2022 and 2023, also writing reviews for each, those being Do Gods Dream of Digital Drugs, Chanting Sutra Network, and Unseasonable Blooming and Minuet. You can find links to those in the show notes. And when I started hearing some interest from people that wanted to try running them, I reached out to the authors about a possible translation. It took a while to do, firstly to get permission to release on DriveThruRPG, but Chaosium's Nick Brook and Michael O'Brien helped a lot with that, and then secondly, I'm just really slow. But last month, that being August 2024, we finally released the English version, Japanese 2024, which has an additional supplement chapter on modern-day Japan, onto DriveThruRPG. The popularity of Call of Cthulhu in Japan gets brought up quite a bit in the English-speaking TTRPG space, with a good few articles written about it, but weirdly there aren't many articles written by or interviews with Japanese players, keepers, or writers. In English, obviously. So both as some background into the writing of Japonism, as well as just to hear the perspective of Japanese Call of Cthulhu fan and community content writers, here are some questions and answers from Aka, Lom, and Byoushin, those being pen names, obviously. This is also, it was a written interview, so I'm just going to be reading it all out. Sorry. The original Japanese is also available on my site, so link to that below somewhere as well. Question 1. When did you start playing TTRPGs? Was Call of Cthulhu your first RPG? From Aka. I think I first played Call of Cthulhu around 2015. Call of Cthulhu replays, note being those are basically live-streamed actual plays with fancy layouts, on video sites became popular in Japan around 2012, and those caught my interest. Call of Cthulhu was the first TTRPG I played. From Lom. Around 2015, I think. I wasn't particularly interested in TTRPGs at the time, but I started playing when a junior in university invited me to a Call of Cthulhu session. And from Byoushin. Around 2016-2017, I think. The first TTRPG I played was Call of Cthulhu. A cafe I sometimes went to had the rulebook, so I got curious and I looked into it. Question 2. What inspired you to start writing community content for Call of Cthulhu? What was your first scenario/project? From Aka. I started because the people I played with had written scenarios. My first scenario was a closed circle single-player scenario. From Lom. When I first tried keeping, I thought it was a good opportunity to try writing and running my own scenario, so I wrote my first scenario. It was a closed circle scenario, which was a popular format in Japan at the time, but it's no longer publicly available. My first still available scenario you can purchase is a short scenario set in 1200s Mongolia. See a link in the show notes. Also, that's only available in Japanese. And from Byoushin. I made a sort of just notebook level scenarios before, but Do Gods Dream of Digital Drugs was my first properly written scenario. Aka and Lom reached out to me and gave the opportunity to publish my scenario. Question 3. When and why did Lom/Aka start Victims of Int? How did Byoushin get involved? Note, Victims of Int, or Victims of Intelligence, is the writing circle they're a part of. From Lom. We started working together as we had a similar taste in scenarios and shared a desire to write a campaign set in 1890s England. From Aka. When we were making Japonism, I invited Byoushin to include Do Gods Dream of Digital Drugs. Question 4. What was the idea for creating Japonism? From Aka. We started Japonism because we wanted to challenge ourselves with a modern-day Japan setting. A little earlier, the 3 of us had been playing with the idea of writing scenarios after looking at character sheets submitted by the other 2. And that's how Byoushin and Lom had the original ideas for their scenarios that were included in the collection. Question 5. What inspired each of the scenarios? What was your goal or main theme you wanted to try? From Byoushin. Together with Aka and Lom, using the create a scenario after looking at other 2 players' character sheets idea, I made the prototype for my scenario, Do Gods Dream of Digital Drugs. To write the scenario in a short period, I decided to make it about one of my hobbies, music. Some Cthulhu mythos stories and scenarios have music leading to the downfall of humanity, but I wrote this thinking about what would happen if something like this actually occurred in modern society. From Lom. For the create a scenario after looking at the other 2 players' character sheets challenge, Aka and Byoushin submitted Kyoto University engineering students from temple and shrine families, which then became the hook for my scenario, Chanting Sutra Network. And from Aka. I wanted to really focus on respecting the setting and era of modern Japan, so I chose the curses and urban legends as the themes. I think it, being Unseasonable, Blooming, and Minuet, turned out to be kind of a J-horror scenario. Question 6. Did you have any difficulties creating the scenarios? How did you overcome them? From Byoushin. When playing the prototype, I mostly improvised, so when it came to putting it down into writing, I had some trouble. Fortunately, after running it with Aka and Lom, I was able to run it several times with other Call of Cthulhu friends. So with the pattern of improvement and development through those runs, it gave me hints on how to write it out. From Lom. When I started writing, my understanding of IoT technology was limited, but I revised the scenario while talking with friends who used IoT in their work. And from Aka. Lom helped me a lot with the latter half of the scenario. I'm not great at creating NPC sheets. Personal note for me, I also hate creating NPC stats. Question 7. What is your favorite part of the scenario? From Byoushin. Making use of the setting in a modern Japanese city. In Japan, it's difficult to obtain weapons such as firearms, and causing a scene in a modern metropolis can quickly spread on social media. I like having to solve problems given these constraints. From Lom. I like that the scenario can be run in a short amount of time and it allows for exploring Kyoto and seeing some impressive scenes. And from Aka. I think it's the setting and era that can't be changed, that the scenarios can only be played in this place. The Japonism scenarios were created with the intention of only being able to be played in modern Japan. Question 8. How important are replays in the Japanese TTRPG community, in particular as scenario writers? Once again, replays are basically actual plays, but they're usually live, recorded, and they have like these fancy overlays, and they're cool. From Lom. I think replays are an entry point for people new to TTRPGs, and experienced TRPG players tend to decide on which scenarios to play based on word of mouth through social media. From Aka. Watching replays is super fun. If you record a replay, you can go back and watch it later. And from Byoushin. People tend to avoid learning about a scenario's contents before playing it, and I think many watch replays after playing it themselves. However, there are many short reviews that don't have spoilers on social media, and I think most people choose a scenario based on those reviews. Question 9. Is there any particular takeaway you hope English-speaking Call of Cthulhu players get from Japonism? From Aka. I think people can enjoy Japanese culture through this scenario collection. I hope they'll play and learn a little bit more about Japan. From Lom. After playing, I think they'll definitely want to visit Japan. From Byoushin. As it also comes with a guide on how to play and create investigators in modern Japan, I think they'll find it useful when playing other scenarios. Question 10. Besides your own work, are there any scenarios, official or public, English or Japanese, that you particularly like? From Aka. My favorite scenario is The Condemned. Note that is from H.P. Lovecraft's Arkham for 6th edition Call of Cthulhu. From Lom. For English scenarios, Saturnine Chalice, which is from 7th edition's Deadlight and Other Dark Turns, The Wild Hunt, which is from 6th edition's Unseen Masters, and TV Casualties, which is from 6th edition's Atomic Age Cthulhu. And to change systems a little bit, I also love Trail of Cthulhu's The Kingsbury Horror, from the Trail of Cthulhu main book, and Delta Green's Dead Letters, from Delta Green's Dead Letter. From Byoushin. For English scenarios, I like The Wild Hunt, once again from Call of Cthulhu 6th edition's Unseen Masters, The Devil Eats Flies, from 7th edition's Berlin the Wicked City, and None More Black, from 7th edition's Doors to Darkness. Question 11. Are there any Japanese scenarios you think English-speaking players would particularly like? From Byoushin. For Japanese scenarios, I like the Taisho-era set Ginza Uzumaki, or Ginza Vortex, from Cthulhu and Empire 6th edition sourcebook. There's no PDF or English version, so you can get it on Amazon Japan. And the Heian-era set Tsukiyori no Reijin, or Beauty from the Moon, from Cthulhu Codex, also a 6th edition sourcebook, also no PDF or English version. You can still get it on Amazon. If you're interested in the Japan set scenarios in Japonism, please do try out playing in other time periods. From Lom. Among Japanese scenarios, I really like the craziness of the community scenario Shinnen no Keifu, Atrala Chronicle. I have no idea how to pronounce that. So I'd love for English-speaking players to try it out. Link in the show notes. Again, it's only in Japanese, but there's a PDF, so you can use all your crazy machine translation to get that working for you. From Aka. It was only printed in a Japanese magazine, but I'd love to hear English-speaking players' impression of the 1990s USA scenario, Electric Voice. Note, there is no PDF, no English version, and this is a massive pain to find. There's a link to an eBay listing in the show notes and a Japanese website called Surugaya, which is also a listing for it. Good luck getting that. I would like to, but I don't know how to get it. If you're interested in Japonism, there's a link to the DriveThruRPG page, or there are also links to the reviews I wrote for each scenario. Those were written before being translated into English, so there's some changes that had to be made for the DriveThruRPG release, but for the most part, it still stands. Thank you to Aka, Lom, and Byoushin for answering these questions, and as always, thank you to CryoChamber for use of their album, Cthulhu. Until next time, have a good one.